All right. So big hand and welcome to Marco.
Thank you very much. Hello. Yeah, thank you, Bent, and the organizer for organizing this amazing event, and the other speakers, and everyone really. So excited to be here today. Yes, I'm Marco. As you can see from my accent, I'm Italian originally, but I live in London, where I work for a company that produce a platform for TV and movie production. And as I was explaining, I co-organized the Django London meetup. Again, please have a look on meetup.com. Currently, we're doing online events, all for free. And yeah, play Dungeons and Dragons. Is there anyone that ever heard of Dungeons and Dragons in the room? Yes, few of them. Okay, why is that important? Because I'm going to talk about full text search and Dungeons and Dragons today. So why search? Something important, why we should have a talk about it. We live in a world of information, of data, and every day we publish, access a lot more information. And we need a way to navigate through all this information. What are the systems that we use for that? Well, we have categorization. We have human that can categorize data or vertically using systems like categories or horizontally like tags. But this is a manual operation that is expensive. You need to have physical people, physical human operators there reading and deciding what goes in which bucket or not. And it's subject to bias, because if I have 2 or 3 different operators, they are going to categorize things in different way. Nowadays, we talk a lot about machine learning. They can use some system to do this automatically. But reality is that it's still very expensive to set up this kind of system and train them to categorize data instead of human. So full text search is still the best solution in these cases. It's easier to set up than a machine learning system to auto-categorize. It's cheaper than human organization. And it's a tool that users are familiar with. Everyone uses Google or Spotlight on Mac or a lot of different things. So yeah, I divided search in Django in 4 different categories according to different approach. And I connected them to 4 classes in Dungeons and Dragons. I'm going to have a quick explanation of what a class is in a second. So yeah, today I'm going to do a tour of this 4 approach and explaining why you should use one and not the other, because they are all valid, but in different contexts. So let's start with the first one, standard textual queries, the fighter. So when you are a new player of Dungeons and Dragons, you have to learn the game. Part of this rule, they are the same for every player, but every single player chooses a class, a profession, if you wish. The fighter is usually new players friendly profession class, because it's easy to get started with. You have sword, a shield, you hit with your sword, parry with the shield, it's simple. In the same way, standard textual queries is the easiest way to start doing text search in Django. It's a simple check if a series of characters, string, is present into another string. You don't have to do any setup. If you have Django, you will have one of the database, Postgre, MariaDB, Mongo, Oracle, and it will just work automatically. What's the downside of this is, well, fighter in Dungeons and Dragons is very easy to get started with, but it doesn't go that far. Start like hitting with a sword at the beginning, but even after a while, it's still doing the same thing. Same for standard textual queries. They are very good to get started, ideal for an MVP, but eventually they are not going to do much more than that for you. They can tell you if it says string is inside another string, only that. They are not going to be able to tell you how many times there is a match for each record. You will not be able to do any kind of ranking with this kind of search, and no spell check. If you misspell something, there is not going to be maybe you were looking for. There's just like no result. How Django implements standard textual queries. Using 3 lookups. The first 2 available for every database, the third only for Postgres. Base 1 is _ contains, normal text comparison is going to check if every character is that. And this is the default and is case sensitive. So it's going to differentiate it between capital case and lowercase letters. The second one, _ I contains, is case insensitive. That's where the I stand for. And it's not going to make a difference between uppercase and lowercase. The third, an accent, is available only on Postgres, and it's going to do accent folding. So it's going to check letters regardless if they have accent or not. So, for instance, I have here in this example an N with a tilde, that is a Spanish and I think Portuguese also character. This is also going to match a normal N. So yeah, what's a good use case for standard textual queries? My opinion, filters in the admin interface. It's an excellent use case. You can implement that quite quickly. And your users are internal users. They're going to use the admin. They're going to have some knowledge of the data set of your platform and of the platform itself. So even if you give them a tool that is not that flexible, they are going to still use that properly. What's a bad use case for standard textual queries? If you need something more complex, if you want something for external user, for instance, if you have a website with a lot of articles and you want to allow users to search into these articles, this is not going to work quite well for them. So for the next one, we have the wizard. External services. Usually when you talk about search in Django, the first thing that you hear is Elasticsearch. I had a couple of conversations with people today in Copenhagen, and I say, oh, you're going to talk about Elasticsearch. Yes, but it's just one of the external services that you have. I put them all in one bucket, and I'm going to treat them as black boxes. So from Django point of view, you give them data, and you get the answer to your search queries. But yeah, I'm not going to make any differentiation on how they're working internally. Why I said that this is the wizard? Because for me, this is the exact opposite of the fighter. Wizard is very hard to get started with in Dungeons and Dragons. You have to learn the basic rule system, but also the magic system that is huge. Different school of magic, level of magic, understanding what means that you have prepared a spell or that you know a spell. It's very convoluted. And external services also they require an initial development. You have to connect that with your platform. You are increasing the complexity of the architecture. Now, all of a sudden, you have another piece beside your database and your application. You also have this search engine, and you have to manage different copy between production, development, and staging if you need to. It has to scale, maybe scale in a different way from the rest. And also the system, they contain a redundant copy of your data, and you have to manage the fact that now you have 2 copies of your database, and you keep them in sync. What are the pros? Why you should do all this work? Well, because once you've done it, it's amazing. When you have a powerful wizard in Dungeons and Dragons, you can do whatever you want. You can have like fire raining from the sky. You can like turn one of your light in a giant. You can fly, be invisible. And for external services, you can do a lot. You can manage millions of records. This is actually quite easy, even with cheap hosting. This kind of system, they easily manage big numbers. They have a lot of different features, spell checking, for instance, faceting, weighted search, spatial ranking system. So yeah, external services is the high cost, high value solution. You go for that when you have development time to invest, but you will have a huge return from it. How does this system work? As I say, they are different, but there are some similarities between them. So first of all, you have to define a schema of your search index. You can see that that's the model of the search index. Then you have to index all the existence record that you have in the database in the system. You usually have like a salary task to do that, and you just go through everything. And last but not least, you have to keep up to date every change in your database with the system. Django has signals like post save and post delete that can be used for that. So you can register a specific event to being called after a save or after deletion of an object, so that you can use that to update the copy that is in the search index. And Chris was mentioning like 5 minutes ago that there is another tool that I didn't know that actually can connect your Postgre database with directly with Elasticsearch. Maybe we can talk about this later on, Zule. Learn this today. Yes, so what's a good use case? As I said, when you have a lot of data, when you have millions of records, or you have very big requirement around search, and when it's a central part of your application. Bad use case is when you have constraint about development time. If you need to release something quickly, this is not the best way to do it. Same if you have constraint about architecture complexity, you don't have dedicated team that is helping you with DevOps and system administration. This can be a deal breaker for you. Next one is the BART. The Postgres full text search. As the name says, this is only available in Postgres. Who is a BART? A BART is one that sings and talks. They solve problems to diplomacy and deception. Yeah, they're talking guys. They go there and instead of fighting, they trying to find a solution with words. What's their weakness? Well, you cannot really use words if the other person doesn't know the language that you're speaking. Same with the Postgres full text search. It's language dependent. It's language dependent. You use a series of dictionary built into Postgres, and they depend on a single language. So you will have a set of dictionary for English, a set for Danish, a set for Italian, and when you try to use the incorrect one, you will have terrible results. The advantage is that you have a kind of a semantic search, advanced ranking system. You can search in more than one field at the same time, giving different weight to each field that you're searching it, and it's extremely configurable. This is a solution that is almost at the same level as an external service. It doesn't have the same performance, but like most of the functionalities are there. So how does this work? So Postgres is going to take whatever you want to index in your search system and normalize the words, remove stop words, and then apply frequency score for each word. Let's make an example. Let's take the Django tagline, the web framework for perfectionists with the deadlines. If we ask Postgres to create a search vector for this, in our Django application, Django is going to do this for us, so don't worry, you don't have to write SQL. First, it's going to normalize it, so deadlines will become deadline. We have removed the final part. If we remove stop words, the, for, and with, they have no more meaning to the phrase, so they will be removed and ignored for the search, and then it will apply a frequency score to each word using how frequent is that word in the English language. So deadline, for instance, is less frequent than web. As I say, this is language dependent. I'm specified that I want this process to be done for English. because if I ask the system to do, if I ask Postgres to do the same operation with the same string for 3 different languages, I'm going to have 3 completely different results. As you see, for English, you have what I just showed you. For Italian, it is not going to normalize the word deadline because Italian has different rules about plurals. And as the word for is not a stop word in the Italian language. Same for Danish. In this case, I think I removed the for word, but it left the and with. So yeah, you have to specify which language are you using. On the other hand, you can get a lot of interesting things. For instance, you will have a better ranking if you have multiple matches in the same record. So if you have a long article that is talking about Django and you search for the word Django, Postgres is going to be able to tell you that it found the word that you were looking for more time in this record than in another record and giving a different rank. It's going to match by proximity. If you're searching for website as 2 words, when these 2 words they come together, they are going to match higher if these 2 words come into different part of the sentence. And you can specify the importance of the field. All of this just configure in Django. And by the way, this doesn't require an external library. This is all built in Django. So what's a good use case? Searching the article content, that it was the bad use case for the standard textual query. In this case, it's an excellent use of this one. While a bad use case, it would be searching in a list of movie titles. This is very specific. Why so? Movie titles are in general names. Because the normalization process only works on words that are part of a dictionary. If you take people name, movie title, artist name, and band's name, you will likely find words that are not in a dictionary, like recently last Christopher Nolan movie Tenet is not going to be in a dictionary. And so the normalization process is just going to ignore all these words. Now, last but not the least, the barbarian. The barbarian in Dungeons and Dragons is a big guy. He's big, fast, and strong, and he's angry usually. Goes around with a two-handed sword or a huge axe and chop things enough first, and then he asks questions. I try to think what's weak about the barbarian. I cannot think of any weak points, to be honest, but there is one actually. They cannot read or write. They are limited in this. You could argue that they don't really need to, but yeah, they can't. Postgres trigram, this is another feature that is specific of Postgres, and it works in a different way from the full text search, and is language independent. So it technically doesn't read. It considers each character as an independent entity. This is a big strong point because it doesn't have the limitation that the full text search has. And it also will work very well in case you misspell something, because if you change one character, it's still going to compare all the other characters in the strings, and it's still going to give you matches. On the other hand, if you're looking for something a little bit more semantic, you have large texts. And when I talk about large texts, I'm talking about the size of each record, not the number of records that you have. This can be less precise than full text search. How does this work? It's very mechanical. It's trigram stands for trigram. We'll explain what that means in a second. So first, Postgres is going to prepend and append space to each string that you want to use in the search index. Then it's going to divide the string in group of 3 characters. The title are trigrams. Then the list of trigrams is going to be filtered for duplication and order it. And only at this point it would be used for comparison. It is a bit complicated, but let's make an example just to understand. The string Django, for instance, you have Postgres. It will take 2 spaces and prepend to Django, and then append another space. And then we'll start taking 3 characters from the total string. So the first trigram will be space, space, D. Second one would be single space, DJ, then DJA, and so on. This will be the entire list. At this point, it will order this list for, it will order this list and remove duplicates. So what you end up with is what you can see in the slide. It's quite unreadable, but that's the trigram version of the string Django. At this point, Postgres can use it to compare and search, and use the number of trigram that match between 2 strings to give a distance of the 2 strings. So let's make another example. If you search the string Django in the other string, Django is a web framework, Postgres is gonna apply the same transformation to both strings, and then check the number of trigram that are the same and over the number of total trigram that you have in both the strings, and then give you a similarity score that is just like the proportion between trigram that are the same with the total trigram of the strings. In this case, it would be like 0.227 approximating, and the maximum is 1 if it's exactly the same string. If you misspell Django, in this case, and you write JDango, inverting the first 2 characters, you will still have a result. You will still have some similarity. It's going to be less, of course, than if you spell it right, but it's still going to give you a match. This works particularly well when you're looking like for long sentences, and for long sentences, and you just misspell something. What's a very good use case? A list of unique words. I use this personally in a list of artist name with like singers and band name. You couldn't use a dictionary there because each DJ of the world, they have like different names. Sometimes they're not even pronounceable. And with this system, it was creating a really nice approximation. What's the best use case? As I said, if you have articles or long pieces of text, probably full text search is a better option. And note on both this system, as I say, they are both features of Postgres. As they come out from Postgres, they are not very performant. They are extremely slow. If you add the GIN index, that is, again, another thing that you can do directly from Django without writing any SQL yourself, this is going to speed up the system. So if you want to use one of these 2 features, make sure to create a migration to add a GIN index on the columns that you want to search for. And yes, these are like the 4 main categories of search. I'm pretty sure there are like more around there. For me, what is good about this is like you have so many options. And if there is something that D&D taught me, is that diversity is amazing. Having so many options and so many technologies, so many people in the world, so many classes that do different things in different cases, each one with a strong point and a weak point, is something that is valuable and something that we should use and cherish from. So choose one of them if you have to build a search system, change it in the future if you don't like it anymore, create a new one, modify something, just build a cool thing and be amazing. So thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Marco. So we've got some time for questions, okay. And I do have a couple of questions. Oi, thank you. now the internet can hear me better. Yeah, we do have a little bit of time for questions before we go to lightning talks. And I've been wondering if you just showed a slide with Danish on it.
I don't speak Danish.
So I'm going to ask you in English. How does someone find if their language is supported in Postgres? And is it should people worry that?
In your documentation, there is a list. It's quite easy to find it. I think there is like 36 languages included. It is on GitHub. The list of languages is open source.
So indeed, if you want to improve your own language support, you can do that. Yep.
Yes, I think so. You can just submit a request.
And does it vary the quality of the language support?
Oh, yes, of course, because again, for how the system works, he has to normalize this word to make it possible to check for variants, like if you are not just plural and singular, like the two cases in English, but other languages that have different grammar, like Italian or Spanish, they have a more complex system of suffix, in which you can, for instance, indicate if something is big or small, and you do this adding a suffix. If you have a good dictionary for normalization, you can search ball, get matched for like one ball, multiple balls, big balls, and small balls.
And to get started using full text search, is there some off-the-shelf solutions? For instance, it's common to need it for blogs and CMSs and so on. Perhaps with Wagtail or Django CMS.
Yeah. So for if you have a blog, I will just use if you're using Postgres, it's the database. I would use the Postgres full text search. Again, from Django, is the actual the official documentation is very good. You can just add the right index to the word that you search from the field that you want to search in each different model, and create search factor to decide if one field is more important than the other to do search on multiple fields. But that's potentially even just an extra step. You could just apply the search on one field that is the content of the article. That's it. If you are not dealing with a huge amount of data, this is going to be the best option.
And there's a question from the internet from Paolo, who asks, I developed the Django documentation search. I would appreciate if you can explain more about your opinion about that search so I can improve it.
Okay.
Thanks. It's a comment. All right.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Can you add your dictionary for the search?
To Postgres. Okay, so I'm going to repeat because for the internet. So yeah, Christopher's asking if you can add your own dictionary. You should add your dictionary, to Postgres, not to Django. I didn't try, to be honest. I'm assuming that is possible. I know that that's dynamic list. That's quite clear from the Postgres code base where you have the list of different languages. I think you should be able to install an extension. I know that some feature of Postgres, it can be, installed directly from SQL. Some of them they need to be enabled. For instance, older version of Postgres, they will not have trigram enabled by default, but there is a small note in the documentation to have your database to enable it. I guess you can do the same thing with dictionary, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think we have time for the next question also, although it's not directly related to full text search. It's more for Django London meetups. If you have any upcoming meetups and how you are you going to keep on being online also in the future?
Okay, so we have a meetup schedule every month. I think that now we have a date for sure for the rest of the year. Just because we only have 3 months in advance, so we found one in October, one in November, one in December. I'm not sure if we published them yet on meetup.com, but yeah, that's the best way to find information. Otherwise, we have a Twitter account. We are going to keep them doing them online for the foreseeable future. Right now, the UK just announced another 6 months of quarantine, and there is a ban over there in doing this kind of gathering. So we don't know when we will back to be in a physical format. So yeah, it's in the future. In the meantime, we keep doing them once a month. Usually second Tuesday, but we may change it. And again, meet up and Twitter account the best way.
All right. Thank you so much, Marco.
Thank you.
All right. Big hand for Marco.